Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. I want to spend just a moment this morning kind of going over a quick review of the weekend storm system, because when we look back over that time period, we had 458 reports of severe storms in a large sector here, parts of the Mid-South and the Midwest, including 64 reports of tornadoes. And then as those storms moved to the east on the 11th, you can see here that through parts of North Carolina, we had numerous reports of strong straight-line wind damage from some of the powerful storms. So this was quite an exceptional event that moved across this section of the United States, and it will likely be one of the more deadly and costly tornado outbreaks in U.S. history, and certainly for the month of December. I just want to show you something here. One of the great things that we are able to track with our radar network is what we call rotational tracks. In other words, we're able to look on the radar signatures and see where we have strong rotation in the storm. And you probably heard over the weekend a lot of people referring to this as a quad state tornado, and that's because the rotational track I'm overlaying right here was this supercell that started in Arkansas, cut through parts of Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And all said and done, it was basically a sequence of storms, all a part of the same main supercell that stretched almost 600 miles in this particular area. So this is where we had a lot of the damage. And just a reminder, whenever you see storms like this on radar, these are called supercells. The outline of the supercell is right here. It's what they generally look like on radar. They have a forward flank and a rear flank and a hook echo. That's the piece in the back here. And if you can see, this is the town of Mayfield. Now, if you notice, there's very bright radar reflectivity right here, and that is actually where we had the tornado. It's called a debris ball, and when the radar scans through that and we see those very high reflectivity values, we're way down here on the scale. This tells us there's a very large and damaging tornado. Now, we do not yet know where it's going to rank on the enhanced Vegeta scale, but some of the destruction that we saw was just terrifying to see how powerful of a storm this was. We would call this a textbook supercell, and in order to be that, it would certainly have to have all of the main characteristics and produce a very large and violent tornado. So just wanted to remind you that this past weekend was exceptionally devastating for a large part here of the Mid-South, and then those storms, of course, got over to us. Now let's stitch it all together and look at precipitation totals, because some of these storms were capable of delivering quite a bit of rainfall. It put some rainfall into parts of North and South Carolina and Virginia that have been quite dry. On the back side of it, all of this was snow that is rapidly melting, and I'll show you that here in just a few moments. And you're going to see as we get into this analysis that what's taking place in the western United States is really going to influence our pattern all week long. So total accumulated precipitation, we kind of zoom in here. There were a few spots that did pick up, better than 3/4 of an inch, in some places even more than that, scattered throughout North Carolina. But what I want to address is where we've been since November the 1st, because this map looks at precipitation ranks, and we can see that there's a large section of the Mid-Atlantic into the Appalachian Mountains down to the coastal plain here that is having a very, very dry fall. And there's concern about how long that's going to last, and do we have any relief in the near term? And I want to talk to you about that today. So some of these precip stats here, just take a look. Some places are having a top 5 driest falls on record. And remember, we're approaching the winter solstice here in the next week or so, and that'll be on December 21st when we move fully into winter. We want to ask ourselves, is that winter pattern going to be providing relief? So I'm going to cover that at the end of this particular video. But I want to show you the latest drought monitor, because we've seen some expansion of the drought. We now have, in some places, up to the 3rd category of drought, the severe to approaching the excessive and exceptional drought here. In fact, we've seen, let's just go take a look at this. Change maps, that's the 1-class degradation we saw just in the last week. And if we look over the last 12 weeks, we have some places here that have seen up to a 3-class degradation. So that's why we're very concerned about where the moisture is going to be coming from and when it's going to return. And my main narrative behind the drought development here and here has been no strong subtropical component of the jet stream. But we can kind of fake it, if you will, if we can get deep enough troughs to come into the west, so that you get those westerly winds in this area. And the trough that's coming into the western side of the United States right now might possibly be the clue or the hint we'd need toward getting better precipitation toward the end of the month. So before we get to that, though, just want to show you some of the soil moisture values we've got right now. So you can see that really hitting the southern plains and this part of the Cotton Belt hard. And then also North Carolina, Virginia, there's a lot of places that are 2 to 10% of their normal soil moisture at this time. Okay, so what's possibly changing this up? Well, this is the jet stream pattern today. It is highly amplified. Big ridge going into Alaska, deep trough that's cutting into the west, and that's that strong onshore flow there that could put upwards of 4 to 6 feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada. Now, what you've got right now is this opens into a broad ridge, which means high pressure is going to take over in our neck of the woods for much of this week. But I want to talk to you about when I'm expecting to get more precipitation, because in the near term, all the action's in the west. This is our all hazards weather map early this morning. We've got winter storm warnings, places that are going to be seeing wind speeds of 30 to 70 miles an hour, and that extends into the plains. But sitting under a big area of higher atmospheric pressure here, we're going to watch our temperatures rebound, and we're going to stay relatively dry throughout much of the next week. Let's go take a look at it by jumping over here to our European model forecast. Now you can see it. See that isobar right there? That's a 1028 high, and it's just going to sit there and really kind of protect us, if you will, from the flow, bringing in high moisture values or anything that could bring in some inclement weather. So just playing through Monday, getting into Tuesday, if I just rock back and forth, do you see how the air just curls around that high? So if the flow comes around like this, you build these big lows that come up toward Lake Superior, but we just still sit under high pressure here all the way through Wednesday night. If I just keep playing it forward, there's a front that does form by Thursday, but it's not even to the Appalachian Mountains by the time we get into Thursday morning, maybe even Thursday evening. And when that front gets to us, the low that's producing it's over the Hudson. So this is not going to be at one of those big, powerful fronts that can really just rip through and bring in a lot of precipitation. Instead, the high, it slowly moves over here off my map, but the flow keeps coming around. So what ends up occurring along that front is it stalls, becomes stationary, where the flow on one side is like this and the flow on the other side is like that. So they meet and don't really, one doesn't move the other. So the stationary front stays there. And I'm all the way out to Friday. And you notice at that point, I still have yet to talk about any sort of significant precipitation coming into North Carolina. So when does it get here? Well, you just noticed that through Saturday, getting into Sunday. I mean, we saw about 36 hours of precip staying there until things start to move a bit on Saturday night getting into Sunday. And that's when the front starts to move across our region. But right now, the models at best are bringing in scattered precipitation, again, Saturday into Sunday. And so this is not as though it's bringing in, a large quantity of precipitation out to that point. And even as I play it into early next week, this is next Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, we see high pressure wants to take back over. So when do things start to shift? I think it's going to be when we fully get into the week of Christmas or after that we get better chances of precip here. And I want to make that case for you, okay? First, how much are we looking at this week? Let's just play it forward. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, by Friday, there's the front approaching, but it stalls out. So we don't get a lot of precipitation in here until maybe Saturday and Sunday. And at that point, this is all scattered. So look at these colors and match them up on my color bar down here. And you see we're not talking about overly wet conditions through the end of this week. So from there, I just want to make a point. Through the next 7 days, the precipitation anomaly map clearly shows that we're going to remain in a broad sector here in the southeast up to parts of the mid-Atlantic on the drier side of things. There's the stationary boundary. The system's coming to California and then go straight up to the Hudson Bay, and that tells me high pressure and a big ridge is in place here. So that's what needs to change and break down. And here's the thing. We get out there into week 2, and now the GFS shows a wetter pattern. And we ask ourselves, why is that? Because when you look out there from day 10 to day 11, 12, 13, 14, that's what I just played through. Got a big ridge building into the Gulf of Alaska. You can see a hint of one here in the North Atlantic. So the flow's got to do that. Now, you see the ridge position here? It's down over Cuba. And the thing to tell you about that is if the ridge is in place there, we tend to get actually flow out of the Gulf. And if the jet streams come screaming over the top of it, that would indicate, albeit mild, a better chance at seeing above average precipitation. In fact, I say mild, but I'll be honest with you. I think the temperature pattern is going to be in a major state of flux, a lot of rapid changes as we move toward the end of this month. And I'll present that in a second here. But I want to give you some confidence in that forecast because the European is also picking up on the wetter conditions into the week, Christmas week and beyond. So we're not yet developing a subtropical jet. We're just digging a trough deep enough in the west that we're finally getting that southwest flow, which we would need to bring in the precipitation early this winter. All right, before I go long term, let's talk about temperatures. Take a look at this. Monday's highs getting into Tuesday and Wednesday. Now you see it, right? That deep trough opens into that broad ridge. We're going to have temperatures in the Midwest. This is my neck of the woods that are going to be upwards. See the white in there? That's because my color bar only goes to 39 degrees above average. That means more than 40 degrees above normal. And as you guessed it, that's going to move east. So by Thursday into Friday, that warm sector opens up over us, and there's still this weak boundary right in through. That's where that front is. And we're going to get some cooler air in behind it, but not Saturday, Sunday. See it coming in there? That's how long it's going to take to push this system around and get it over us. But some new data this morning. Now take a look at this. Remember the ridge setting up here, day 5 through 10? We're gonna get the benefit of that in terms of keeping the temperatures warmer. But with the deeper trough coming in here, running over that ridge, look at the colder air that's set up here, day 5 through 10, that's going to start to make its way toward us at some point. Now we ask the question, is it going to get to the Carolinas? Is it going to get to the southeast where we're going to get some sustained cold air? We're going to get shots at colder air, but will it be sustained cold air? Because parts of the Canadian prairie here, now this is already a region that should be very cold at this point in December, may have temperatures 10 to 20 degrees below average. We look out there farther, this would be the day 10 through 15, and now you just see once again the influence of that ridge. So, shots at colder air are possible as we finish the month of December, but it just doesn't seem like the cold air wants to stick around. What could make that stick around? That's the question that I want to go after. Because right now, a major part of this discussion is La Nina. Now, the ocean temperatures here have stabilized. Okay, they're still cooling a little bit here in what we call Nina region 1+2. But out in the middle of the Pacific, if I start to see these ocean temperatures no longer cooling, that tells me those trade winds are no longer pushing hard from the east to the west. And that is absolutely critical to this upcoming long-range forecast. Now, let me share with you why that's the case. We still have the cold water in place, and we still have this. Now, that cold water that you see here is going to help redirect the jet stream farther to the south. That is an important component because we need to get it south so that it'll run over North Carolina. We've avoided the jet stream pattern. But what I want you to see is what's going on with these trade winds. Now, this map, I'll be honest, to most people doesn't make a lick of sense. It starts from today, the 13th, and goes all the way through the 28th. Now, what it's showing me here is this. Do you see these blues I'm highlighting? Now, we've done this a few times. Those blues are the trade winds. Where do they go after the solstice? Do you notice how it breaks over into red colors? That means that the trade winds all of a sudden begin this state of flux. They start to change. They don't stay steady. Now, what have we been seeing? I'll just kind of draw over this. We had seen blue colors everywhere inside that weird looking box I just drew for the last several months, right? That would just tell me that those trade winds were just screaming in this direction, meeting up with westerlies coming out of the Indian Ocean. Those westerlies are gone. So this means that our La Nina is peaking. It's at its peak. And the second half of winter is going to have a much different pattern than the front half of winter. But in the meantime, what this means is that the MJO is coming out over here into phase 7. And we got to watch phase 7 carefully. How much time the MJO spends here tells me how long that southeastern ridge is in place. Now, the moment this southeastern ridge breaks down, the moment it goes away, then this temperature pattern, this precipitation pattern I just explained to you, is gone. That will change everything. You need to watch for a big block going here or here into Alaska, or another big one coming up there. And we start to see the beginnings of that. And when that occurs, this cold air you see here in this trough, it gets farther to the south and a ridge builds along the west. You see what I'm saying? We are in this mild pattern now, and it's been dry. But the moment that this all breaks down and the La Nina kind of gives up some of its ground in the Pacific, everything is going to shift, and I believe we're going to shift toward the colder conditions as we move out there. Now, the models aren't yet picking up on it. They're seeing this between now and January 20th, above average precip there. You ask why? Deep trough comes in, flow comes over like that, and that means we're going to be seeing better chances at seeing near normal precipitation from now through January. But I think that the model right now has not fully picked up on the extent of where that colder air could go. Because you see, it's leaving the large protective ridge around for a longer time than I anticipate. I don't think we're going to see this lasting all the way through January. Now, this isn't associated with the polar vortex yet. The polar vortex is strong. It's over Siberia. It's not yet disrupted and disturbed. It could be late December and through the front half of January, but not yet. So when you look at this forecast of temperatures and you say, wow, I see a lot of mild conditions here, what I want to stress to you is that a lot of this is really just the model hanging on to persistence over the next, to be honest, over the next couple of weeks. I think this cold air is staged and can get out and will get out once we get to the end of this month and into the next. Be prepared for that, okay? Last couple of things. National Climatic, CPC, the Climate Prediction Center here, they released their new forecast through the first week of January. Now, they still got you mild, but do you see the cold air that's here? This is the cold air that I'm going to have to watch carefully. They also, very like the European model, keep this region of the year above average. That's good. I like this forecast because that returns better moisture at the end of this month for us, which we need. We need to start picking up that moisture to get rid of those soil moisture deficits and the other issues. But I do want to show you, because we talked last week about the new long range. This is the new long range from the NMME. And in January, February, and March, it still wants to hang on to those drier conditions in the southeast. I believe the model is biased too dry for us. I believe it's biased too dry across the Carolinas. And I think the European is as well. And I look forward to seeing some updates of all of this as we go through the next couple of weeks here. The last thing I think I better show you real quick, why don't we come back here and let's go to South America and let's look at precipitation anomalies. One of the big stories here over the coming weeks is going to be Paraná through Rio Grande do Sul, that's southern Brazil, and then Argentina. Certainly over the next 7 to 10 days, this region is going to be dry, and the models are continuing to create dry conditions here. So there's some full season corn grown down here, and in Argentina, of course. There's also a lot of soybeans grown in this area, and that's a first crop soybean. And there's some risk here, especially along the Paraná River, which runs in this part of Argentina, that we could see drought developing that really peels back those yields. Not the case from Mato Grosso over to like Minas Gerais, which is this area. This is a region I expect to see above average precipitation. So we need to keep a very close eye on Brazil because it looks as though we're going to split it north, wet, south, dry as we progress through the early part of 2022. So there's going to be a lot of things here that I think could really move the markets around coming out of South America. We just need to keep a close eye on it because normally this time of year is not a big market fluctuation time of year. So let's watch it together. Appreciate your attention. I will talk to you again next week. I believe next week might be the last forecast video I'll produce in 2021. I'm going to take the week between Christmas and New Year's off to spend with family. So we'll get you one more video right after the solstice and go from there. Thanks.